Welcome to the Bright Commerce Podcast.
All right, Carlos, episode 18. We're talking about Woo performance and how to get the most out of your WooCommerce website. Shall we begin?
Let's begin, Judd. I'm excited, man. This is a big one. Speed's everything in today's world.
Absolutely. So, I think the first thing that we're going to start off with is, the foundation of, what holds a site up, and that is going to be the hosting. So, going through shared hosting as well as VPS, dedicated boxes. I think, we spoke about this in the past. There's definitely several avenues to go. Some that cost a lot more than others. Some people have hosting that they might have literally too much juice for their needs, so they can budget it down because, they might not even have that much traffic. So let's break down some of those for people that might want to understand what hostings are good for them.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this one relatively simple, man. Cloud hosting is the way to go, hands down. The startup plans are not that expensive. They're very elastic. They're highly scalable. Specifically, if you're going to host a WordPress and WooCommerce website, go with a hosting partner that understands these platforms well. Pressable being one of them, Kinsta, all those guys are great. Don't go for anything else.
Yeah. So, I agree. I think with cloud hosting, it's inexpensive and it's easy to scale, right? There's two things right there. It's a lot, there's been times that I went to a dedicated box still, but I still found that cloud hosting, for the most part, gives you a lot of flexibility still, allows you to scale it and makes it really easy for you to use. And also it's a service that almost all hosting companies offer now that is a better rate than what they used to have.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear too, I mean, there is still a dedicated option in terms of cloud hosting, right? You essentially get your own servers allocated just to you within that cloud hosting infrastructure. So that's always an option. And again, once you're part of that ecosystem, it's very easy to flow back and forth between different solutions.
Give me an example of like what site you might have on a dedicated box right now.
The only time we use dedicated environments, and we're trying to get away from this, is really for customers that have like very unique applications and require like very unique tweaks to their server environment in order to make the application work. But other than that, we try to stay clear from dedicated.
Yes, I have only one, and that's my own. Literally, I found the need for just having complete control of everything for my own brand. So it made more sense. We were on cloud, and it was from a price perspective as well as controlling pretty much virtually everything on the box. So that's the reason we have it. But literally, you're right, sort of dedicated server. All my clients are on cloud, whether it be AWS, Press.com, or Pressable. Which let's talk about those two because it's you're a partner, I'm a partner, both in them. I know you work heavily in Pressable. Have you explored WordPress.com for, let's just say, brand sites?
No, we have not done anything on WordPress.com. I don't know. We
Okay.
just never like had any projects fall into that category and just never really.
Yeah. For me, what worked best was a small site that's a blog or just a standard like business site. I think Pressable does the same. The price is the same. They both do the same. If you want to stay in one place, I know you went Pressable. I'm a little bit married to both, but I'll say as I've been jumping into Pressable, I really like the platform itself. By the way, I want to let everybody know we're not trying to prop up Pressable at all. We're just telling you, it's just it is a refreshing from someone that went from Liquid Web, from Nexus, Applied Innovations. I just throw it out there. Your old company. I've done a lot of hosting, and I do like their back end, using it. So that's why we're not getting paid to prop them up at all.
No, definitely not. But it is by far, I think, the best hosting experience out there. And not just from like turnkey and getting things up and running, but from a support standpoint. Like you'd be amazed how much insight they give you support wise and how they just like take you in the right direction when something goes wrong. Whereas a lot of
Yeah.
hosting companies, they just, I hate to say it, but 9 out of 10 times they give you the same answer, hey, make sure your plugins are updated.
Yeah, well, so I think we talked about this before. Like a lot of hosting companies have their tier support, and I'm like, go tier 3 every time.
Yeah.
You always ask, like, if you know that there's a tier support, be like, are you tier 1 or tier 3? I want the optimal operator. I want Navy SEAL style support.
Right. Yeah,
I don't
in a
want,
perfect world, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't
It's
want you reading from an AI right now.
yeah, with Pressable though, it seems like you always get a top tier support person, right?
Yeah.
You can tell none of these guys read off a script. At least when we
Well,
approach them, right? When we don't approach them about easy stuff. We approach them when we're like, hey, we don't know what to do here. Let's get some
yeah.
insights, so we're not just ripping everything apart. Let's find out where the issue's stemming from, at least.
Just moved the client from AWS to them because we just had nonstop like issues that we couldn't solve. And I was like, I really wanted to see if it was a server issue. Code was fine, everything was fine. So far, the issue hasn't happened, and now they're just helping us tweak the speed because AWS is a little bit faster, but that's just because AWS is a different environment. So working on that. But that kind of leads into the next segment, which is we're going into the holiday season. So I don't know about you, but I have a lot of B2B customers, like wholesale customers. So it's not as bad, but I've had in the past many B2C customers, and it's gotten better over the years, but it was like a nuts time from like October 1st all the way to literally the first week of January. Like, it was just nonstop. But I have to give it to hosting because like a lot of the issues were hosting, right? They weren't really anything to do with what you're doing, because normally it's like I got to keep the site up, I got to keep it running. If you're doing advertising, things like that, you're busy that way. But it came from a technical hosting perspective and speed. That was always something. And I feel now it's a lot more stable. I think hosting companies kind of said, hey, these are our peak moments here, and they got it together. What's your take on that?
Yes, as far as the holidays go, I mean, this is definitely a time where you start winding down new features and deployments, unless it's like truly necessary.
Yeah.
Don't want to tinker with the platform too much because it is going to be the busiest time of the year. So you wanna capitalize on that time. But around this time of the year, we start telling our customers like, hey, e-commerce season is approaching. Unless you
Yeah.
definitely need something that you must have, I say let's hold off until Q1 of next year.
Do you send out like notifications to your clients saying, hey, look, if you need anything coming up here, you guys got to, put your request in early, let us know. I think it's always a good habit to kind of get them in the mindset, like if I need anything done or I need something, we need to know not December 18th. We need to know October 15th. You know what I mean? Like I've had a couple like literally the 24th of December stuff come in Christmas Eve, and I'm like, come on, guys. You couldn't put that in a little bit earlier, but yeah. How's that take, for the holidays when they come in, especially
It
Cyber Monday?
always happens. You always have one that comes in last minute, regardless
Yeah.
of how many newsletters you send out. Or
Yeah. True.
it's mostly though about like our enterprise class customers, right? The ones that we're
Yeah.
constantly or active developing on. And we have like weekly one-on-ones or bi-weekly one-on-ones where we do all the check-ins. Those are the ones we really hammer and say, not hammer in a bad way, but we really like focus on, hey, it's time to slow down development now. We don't want to push on any new updates.
Yeah. When I was when working with you back in 2007, and you were hosting George Foreman Grill's website, I do recall like that's where the times were rough, because I'd literally be at the Thanksgiving table doing Google ads. And so I not only for the company did I do the ads, I also had to do the site. So here I am just making sure the site was fine with the ads at Thanksgiving while getting yelled at my family for working. And I'm like, it's Black Friday tomorrow. It's just one of those things. I feel for anybody to this day that does like marketing and literally those, like, you don't get time off. Like if you work for a company, they're still like, well, you still have to look at that Black Friday. I know
Yeah.
you're off, but make sure it's running. You know what I mean? It's kind of tough. So I
It
handed
doesn't
up
exist.
really
Yeah,
is doing
time
that.
off does not exist. I would say for most industries, most verticals,
Yeah.
you're just constantly on the hook. You're always communicated, right? It used to be
Yeah.
where you had to be in the office to answer emails or send a fax or use the phone. That is now
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. I have my son who, I don't want to say which one because I don't know if he'll ever get back out there, but he's working for a PR company, and boy, like they work him. So he starts at 10, but he gets done like at 8. Like, I'm like, what time did
Yeah.
you get done? He's like 8. And I have an event, and he's doing an event, and I'm thinking to myself, and he sounds tired. And I was like, when I was that age, I could do that. But now, no. I think a lot of people work now, if in the grinds. I think a lot of companies also when they have the people that don't want to work hard, that's also very noticeable. Like, some people, I remember I took 5 or 6 jobs back then, especially during the holidays, working in this field. But all right, well, going past the holiday shuffle, one other thing to talk about making sites faster would be how you build the website. And I've made a few changes in my agency and the way we're going to move forward, I think, building sites. And I wanted to get your take on, just real quick before I jump into mine, like what you feel from a build perspective, most WordPress sites need.
But ultimately, it all comes down to what type you're running, what type of website you're running, and customer requirements. But you want to try to build your website as light as possible in terms of front end, right?
Yeah.
And that ties in with the builder or the page editor, right? Now, like
Yeah.
over the last decade, these page builders have gotten very, very popular, right? WP Bakery, Tor. And I mean, when those came out and started getting good, we flocked towards them. We were like, oh my gosh, the answer to all
I
our
know
problems is
we can do
here.
things so fast and clients can do
Yeah,
stuff.
you give clients the option to do updates. In fact, I just did a demo yesterday for a customer using Elementor, and I said, "Hey, it's easy for you to update your website, but don't think you can go in here and start redesigning pages or creating pages, right? It
Yeah.
still takes some development skill to do that, as well as creative. But what we're starting to find out now is that these builders dramatically increase the footprint of your website. So it actually slows down your website. So I would say for like high-end,
Yeah.
high-performing websites, just get rid of
They
those.
they they did not evolve in the last I would say 10 years. So you mentioned WP Bakery, that was one of the first ones. They didn't keep up with the times. Elementor beat them out. Then Beaver Builder, I wish this Beaver Builder, and a lot of people will probably say, well, why don't you do Elementor? And I just say, to me, it's just very intuitive. Like, it's just an easier like way to build things, like what you're looking at. So I think the user experience is a lot easier, both from the developer to the user. But at the end of the day, we are pulling the plug. We are build some sites in the builder, smaller ones. Client wants to be able to edit them very easily, wants full control. We tell them, but a lot of the larger clients right off the bat, we're going to be building out an advanced custom fields underscore theme. And we've already built our own kind of framework there, because I would say 9.5 out of 10 times the customer never uses the builder. They always ask us to do it. When they do use the builder, they mess things up. They don't build the way they should. So we have to go back in and fix things a lot. So it just makes it easier, I think, at the end of the day, to build that way. And I also think it doesn't support WordPress well as a CMS. If everybody's having issues with their site and it's loading slow and it's all these problems, and people, like, it doesn't put a good name out there for the CMS itself. And we want to build sites that are fast, and just don't have those issues, because that's what we learn. People, we've had to upgrade over the years. We've had one client over the 10 years or so that they've been with us. We're rebuilding their site now. This will be the second time. First time they had it was like a custom theme. Then they went to Beaver Builder, worked good. Now we're building it completely an underscore advanced custom fields, and it's just going to be sweet, fast, and perfect. And I think AI helps a lot now to make that process even better. Because, when you had to build a custom theme, that's why you went to a builder, because it made things fast. Now with AI, you can still build a very custom theme with Gutenberg blocks and work very efficient. So that's kind of the process I think we're going to be heading into this year with that. Tell me a little bit about the image optimization, because there's been some new, the JPEG GIF days are, I think, now officially over. The transparent PNG file that takes forever to load is over.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, we've definitely moved on from, JPEG, GIF, PNG. I mean, it's still out there, right?
We moved on, right? There's still plenty of sites that didn't.
Yeah, yeah. Now you got the next gen image formats like WebP.
Yeah.
They're good to work with. There are a few plugins that can do this for you. There are some plugins out there that'll just go through your whole entire WordPress library, compress your
Mhm.
JPEG or PNGs, and dramatically save on A, disk space, and B, loading time on the front end, right? Despite having lazy loading enabled in the front end.
Why don't you name some names that
Yeah.
names
Yeah. So we use
sharing?
we like to use WP Rocket a lot, and that integrates integrates with Imagify, and that's currently what we're using. Uh, it's funny, we just started exploring another solution, which is WP Optimize, but we haven't really dove into the image aspect of it yet. I still think that Imagify does a better job at compressing and optimizing images,
Yeah.
especially on the WebP side. And by the way, WebP, it can be a little bit tricky to get it working, so don't just enable it and walk away. Make sure you stage it,
Oh, yeah.
run through
All
it,
of them.
test
All
it.
of them.
It's really on all of them. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
All the most is Smush. I've always
You
liked
like,
WPB
yeah, yeah,
Dev.
yeah. And also, here's a tip if you're using Imagify. By default, it will hang on to your original picture or your original image, and over time, that library can grow dramatically large. As long as you have a good backup on your hosting company, you can just not use that option and then just say, "Hey, do not archive the image. Just go ahead and compress."
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then I think another aspect for making sites faster is going to be the plugin hygiene. I think a lot of companies, actually, I would say 9 out of 10, maybe even 9.5 out of 10 companies that we go and they ask us to check out their website, evaluate it, look at it, see if they need a rebuild of all that, normally has a lot of plugins. And they have a lot of plugins that do the same thing, a lot of plugins that allow people to do file edits in the source code and things that are just awful. I think people don't realize if they have a file editor inside their website and it gets hacked, someone could put on their homepage anything that they want, and it will be very hard to find and remove. So you're talking like you'll have something very bad on your homepage for a while if it gets hacked that way. And I think that's kind of one of the main things that a lot of people need to understand is the plugins themselves matter and the ones you pick matter. And I think, making sure that they're always up to date, ensuring that don't have functionality overlapping each other, because that can cause issues. Making sure plugins are compatible with each other and testing them properly. I love, I have a lot of WordPress.org plugins that we offer for free. And I love when someone starts complaining about the plugin. Did you test the plugin before you installed? Because it says it doesn't do this. But even if it said it didn't do it, did you actually install it in a testing area and test it? Because even though I said it doesn't do it in the directions, you still installed it on your live site and then complained that it was a problem, even though we stated it doesn't do the functionality that you want. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. People just click install and it's like, yeah, like I don't even think you do that with a Shopify site. So like even when you install a Shopify app, I think you want to test it first on your site. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, it goes for any environment, really. The Shopify apps tend to be way less invasive because it's all SaaS driven, right? So you get
Yeah.
very little customization. So it's fairly easy to stage a app on Shopify, simply
Yeah.
because you can just replicate the theme and then just inject your code for the app into that theme and test it from there. For the most part, it doesn't apply to every plugin.
Yeah.
WordPress is a way more open environment, right? So that means people
Yeah.
can do more, which means people can break more. So there's the downside there. Also, one thing I try to tell customers is that a lot of times certain plugins don't play well with other plugins because they're not built with those other plugins in mind. And there's just so many different iterations of plugin setup. So you may get a plugin that does some kind of functionality, right? But it's impacting another plugin that does something else, or it doesn't work with the other plugin because it was never written to be aware of it.
I'm going to give a shameless plug right now that at Bright Plugins, we have over 19 plugins that all are available as a membership and compatible with each other. I had to throw that out there. But yeah, I think when you look at plugins, finding if you really like a good plugin developer, what's always great is if they have many plugins and that fit with each other and are compatible with each other, then you can go with that set. Like
Which is
WPMU.
also, it's a huge ecosystem. So it's very hard to support every type of plugin.
Yeah. Yeah. Barn 2K, by the way, you know who Barn 2K is, right?
I think I've heard of those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the UK. They're selling their plugin. I saw that online. I was like, man, I would love to buy. But so another part that I think a lot of people don't do either when it comes to optimization is the database backend optimization. You want me to go through some of those? You got some high points you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. A lot of times, we were just talking about plugin hygiene. 9 out of 10 times when you delete a plugin, the tables don't get wiped. So
Yeah.
over time, you just end up with all these tables in your database that are just there wasting space.
You brought up a good point that I need to check if we do that more often than not. Because
I'll tell you.
one thing what you don't want to do, sometimes you don't want to wipe tables in case the client wants to use that plugin again. But
True. But I'll tell you
yeah,
this,
but
PP Optimize does a great job at identifying if a table is being
yeah,
utilized by the plugin or not, and it'll just let you wipe it.
that was an AppSumo deal like way back in the day.
No idea.
I think I actually bought it. I need to check like a lifetime deal for that. But yeah, like that's why I think real true WordPress or WooCommerce, whatever, real true management, like hosting management, you do that manually, in my opinion. Like when you do it manually, particularly for an e-commerce site, you first update everything in a testing server. You run through the checkout process or the lead process that you have going, make sure that there's no errors, and then you deploy to live. I highly suggest if you're making more than $1,000 a month on your site, or you have leads coming in that are very important and you don't want to break and not get, and they cost you money, update your environment the right way. Don't just click update, update,
Yeah, no,
update.
no doubt. Yeah,
Sooner
it's
or
like,
later it will blow up in your face,
yeah, no,
and
no,
it's not.
that's the, you're like flirting with disaster if you do that. Yeah, obviously, all the
Yeah,
things we're talking about right now should always be staged, right? Because like we always say,
yeah,
you can break it all you want. Another big one in terms of database performance is enabling HPOS. And that's the high performance order storage in WooCommerce. And I think
yeah.
it came out at about version 8.2. So
3 years ago, I believe, right? Like 2002,
I couldn't
2000.
tell you time. I'm not sure on time, but I know it's version 8.2 whenever that release date was. So
I
any
mean,
if you
now it's I think more standard. Before it was more like a beta kind of thing. But yeah, it's it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, if you installed WooCommerce after version 8.2, you're gonna have it on by default. If you did it pre-version 8.2, it will not be enabled.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and enable it. Again, do it on staging first. Make sure all your plugins or custom plugins are compatible with it because you're gonna have issues. And it's actually pretty cool. There's a safety feature in there. There's a safety feature that synchronizes your orders on the new table with the previous table. And that's how you get around the compatibility issues. But at some point, you want to turn that off, right?
Yeah.
At some point, you want to turn off that safety feature off. Like, what's the point of having it on, basically? Because you're eating up disk
Yeah.
space on two tables versus one. Granted, it might increase performance in a certain aspect because you're only writing to one table when you have an order being placed, and then at some point it synchronizes the orders. But at some point you're gonna want to turn that off. But anyway, that's a big one is doing that. Also, archiving your orders is a big one too.
I have clients that have orders for like the past 20 years, like, or as long as WooCommerce has been alive. You know what I mean? And I tell them, I'm like, do you really need all this data? Like, you can go 3 years back. You need it for related products, older customers. I mean, I get it. But at this point, I tell them, like, after a certain time, it's going to cost you money and speed and conversion keeping all of that. So if you have 100,000 order records, you might want to, like, think about, like you said, archiving
Yeah.
the old
I,
stuff and
I always
having
say
a,
like if performance is an issue, that's one of the first things we'll look at. And then we'll just keep like 3-5 years worth of data, and then we'll archive where I'll put the rest of CSV so they have it for internal record.
All right. The next one, I'm going to let you lead this one. It's going to be caching layers as well as CDN.
Yeah, I mean, look, in today's hosting ecosystem, if you don't have a CDN, you are behind. It's become a standard, right? And just to give our listeners an idea of what a CDN does, it stands for Content Distribution Network. So what a CDN will do is they will deploy servers throughout the country, throughout the world, and those servers will synchronize certain content aspects of your website, such as images, JSS, CSS. And that way, when your site's being delivered to your browser, it's being delivered from a closer server, is
Yeah.
ultimately what it comes down to. But it's still, all the backend complex functions are still done on your core server, wherever that is located.
Now, just so people know too, like, if you have a local though, like a local small business, and I mean like you're a diner, right? You only like you're a diner in Jupiter. Do they need a CD?
I mean, probably not, right?
Okay.
but it has become, I guess what I'm getting at here is that a CDN has become a standard in web hosting. If you're with a web host that doesn't offer a CDN, you're probably on the wrong web host altogether, right?
Well, so, and the reason I brought that out, I was just playing kind of devil's advocate, because if you're a diner in Jupiter, you might not think you need a CDN. But then if you think about all the people that travel to Jupiter, tourism perspective, they might be in different states, different
It's a good
countries.
point too. Yeah. Also, keep this in mind too. It's you can't just look at the users either. You got to look at the search engines, right? It is going to
Yeah.
increase load time, right, and
Yeah.
increase performance or increase speed on loading on your website. Only helps your ranking. So got to look at it from
Yeah.
that standpoint too.
So one thing I'll bring about caching, like minification and all that stuff, I hate with a passion.
We all listen. We all do. We all hate it because a lot of times it breaks. But
Because it doesn't work. So this is where I want to. This is one of the reasons I want to get away from builders, because they pose a serious problem from a display issue when you have a bunch of plugins loading, a bunch of JavaScript, and then you got the
yeah.
builder on top of it. It's a pain in the ass.
So I feel like WP Rocket does an amazing job at CSS and JSA minification, as well as delaying the execution of some scripts or some plugins. Again, it's not something you just turn on your live site, because 9 out of 10 times it is going to break your site or the way your site loads. Things are going to look wonky.
Yeah.
So it's something you got to test, and it's something you sort of have to master and understand how to troubleshoot. Sometimes a specific CSS file or JS file is the culprit, and you got to be able to identify it and not have it minify, right? And just to put things in perspective for people. So on the browser will typically load 10, 20, 50 CSS and JSS files, right? It takes a lot longer to go through 10, 20, or 50 files than it takes to go through one file. And that's where minification comes in. It takes all these files and puts it into one, and it's much easier for the browser to parse. And if I'm not mistaken, it also removes like empty spacing too, right?
It literally makes it just one continuous line of code. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so it's a much needed thing, but it's also always a pain in the butt.
It's problematic, but we found websites to be day and night. That in combination with lazy loading makes a big difference.
So where I always have fear is when I take over someone's website and I start managing it, and it's a bad bill, and they have a very expensive, let's say, lead channel or e-commerce channel, because then it's your problem. That's where so you kind of said, I always say, you don't need to rebuild. Nowadays, if I take over something and I see that it has problems and they want to minify and it's a problem, I show them in staging, it breaks. I can fix this, but just so you know, I take no responsibility if it breaks in another area down the road that I can't anticipate. So that's kind of it's one of those things I just feel from a stress standpoint, and taking over someone else's Pandora's box, that I always typically don't say to rebuild, but we kind of assess things over a period of 6 months. And after we've done assessing, we can really tell them hey, based on where you want to be next year, we recommend doing this. And for the most part, it's usually just refactoring, rebuilding code, like the theme and certain things. But yeah, that's always a pain point, because stuff will break, then you'll turn off caching, right? Because something broke, then you turn off caching. That's going to affect your SEO, and you have to turn it back on. But what happens? People don't turn it back on because it takes a long time to fix, and their SEO is a problem. Sometimes people don't want to take that. I guess it's not some people, clients don't understand the complexity there. And when you're trying to explain, particularly if you didn't build the site, but if you did build the site, it's all your problem. You got to fix it. That's the way that works. So this is a good one. Checkout speed and core web vitals. Let's talk about that, because there's some huge data there about if you have bad checkout speed in particular. So the one thing I always knew back in the day is if a user has any sort of delay or friction getting to checkout, that's always a problem. But then when they get to checkout, if the checkout page doesn't load at a certain time, if it takes long to process, it doesn't have certain things on it, like just, trust messaging and things like that, your conversion goes down, it drops off at checkout. So the one thing that we always recommend is that people really set up a conversion funnel in Google Analytics, for example. There's also other programs like True Conversion, Hotjar. But you really want to look at your funnel if you want to do conversion optimization. And that is, I would say that if you have a budget for marketing and you're thinking about spending it on SEO, which everybody wants to spend on SEO for some reason, they think it's still that golden goose, and it's not. It's so far from it. But the one thing that you should do is conversion rate optimization. If you already have lead channels set up and you want to improve things, you can increase your revenue by 100%, for example, just by doing conversion rate optimization versus that. So that's the kind of, thing to think about from, I'll just say from the checkout, but it's usually from the homepage all the way to the category page, to the product page, shopping cart, all the way to checkout. You want to really check out that process. And a few things that help a lot would be like Ajax, which WooCommerce has a lot of stuff that's standard, but being able to load your stuff very quickly, having a ability, if you add functionality like upsell or related products in certain areas, that those are not slowing down the site, for example,
Right.
because that also,
I'll just add a quick note there. Those are good to have on the product detail page or view cart page, not on the checkout page.
yeah, well, no, on the checkout page, you can have upsell. I highly recommend that. So
Oh,
when
I
they
don't.
get to the, so when they get, so I'll give you an example, like a plugin, I'll sell a Pure plugin, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when I get to the checkout page, I'll put a coupon, get 50% off the deposit plugin, which is compatible. If you click the button now, you can buy it. So then they'll click that button, auto applies and adds it then to their checkout. They don't have to go
I
back.
have seen that. Yeah, I have seen that. I
Yeah.
steer away from that. I steer away from those as much as I can, though.
Yeah.
Like I tell customers all the time, and we do have a few customers that run Checkout WC to bring you that Shopify-like checkout experience.
Yeah.
It's an awesome plugin. They've done an amazing job with it, but it does bring over some issues. There's compatibility.
I don't know if you ever tried cart flows. That's
No,
one of
never.
my, oh my gosh. I'll give you my, I have a, anyway, I'll give it to you. It's really good. I really like that tool. There's also, I think, something called Payflow or whatever. It's literally a plugin that acts like Shopify, but you can't really customize it. And what the deal is it's free, but they get a take of, so whatever's running through Stripe, because they use Stripe as a processor, or whoever processor is, they get a percentage of that sale on the back end. They don't tell the customer that, but that's how they make it free. Anyway, those two. But if I had to pick one, I would definitely check out Cart Flows. It's one of my favorite. All right. So, okay, here we go. Monitoring and maintenance. We both do that quite heavily for ourselves, as well as having our clients be able to do that too. That's a simple one, right? Like if you're not monitoring and doing maintenance, you're not managing your website, and doom will happen sooner or later. But
Or
what's
if it
some of the things that you
or if it
do?
happens, you will know about it.
Yeah, but you won't know about it until someone says, "Hey, why is this
Yeah.
this thing on your website?" I can't even say, I don't want to say things I want to say this, but I've had like someone call me before and they're like, "Well, I have jihad like message on my website." And I'm like, "Yeah, you've been hacked." That's kind of what happens, if you don't manage your websites. But yeah, so I think there's a uptime monitoring, which has like robots that check things and then pings you. There's also Pingdom. When testing, going back to core vitals and things like that, GT metrics is one. Google page speed is what is like the standard, I guess, if you
That
really
is,
want to look.
and let me tell you, it's hard to beat that one, man.
It is. So you know what I do? This is what I do. So when someone like says, I'm like in the yellow for whatever, I'll send them Amazon and they'll be in the yellow. I'm like, Amazon's in the yellow. They spend over 40 billion probably on their website every year.
You really have to focus on your LCP. What is it? Largest
Largest
full
contentful
paint.
paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more of a user-based metric, right? Because you are essentially preloading the viewport as fast
Yeah.
as you can. You're not loading all the functionality or everything up front. You're just giving the perception to the user that, hey, the page is loaded, right? By the time you digest whatever information or consume the information we're showing it to you, we'll have the page loaded. But at least you can start consuming information now. That should be
Yeah.
around 2.5 seconds, ideally. And that's not that hard to achieve.
Yeah. And then, I think another one that second to that's going to be FID, first input delay. And that's how quickly the page responds to user interactions. When someone clicks on a button, how fast that would happen to load,
Yeah.
let's say, another interaction. So the FID will get you if the LCP doesn't. And then you also have the cumulative layout shift, which is how much content jumps around when loading the page. I don't know if you see stuff move,
Like when you
that's
minify.
that.
like when
Yeah.
you minify.
And I told this is a funny part. Like I just had someone go to another company after being with me a long time. And then he called me, he's like, I need to come back to you. And I'm like, oh, you missed me. But he had a site design, a new design, and it's like all animated everywhere. Like it was all this animation. I'm like, he's like, I was like, you like the animation, don't you? He's like, yeah. I go, and I tried to talk you out of that, didn't I? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, did you look at how much traffic you have coming to your site that is not desktop? And he's like, no. And I'm like, you have 10% of users only using desktop. And I said, now this new design, did you look at the mobile? He's like, no, I didn't. And I'm like, oh, because you got 90, or I think it was like 85, because there's like 5% other devices, but 85% of people were coming to you on mobile. And I was like, well, let's look at it right now. So I put it in Lambda test, not the browser, because Lambda test is the real deal. I'll show you what it looks like. And he looked at it and it looked really bad. He's like, you're right. I should have talked to you first. I'm like, it's okay, but I'm gonna hook you up because you did a new build here. Would you like certain things? We're gonna take the old build I did and we're just gonna apply the new design to it because it works perfectly. He's like, you'll do that? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And because you're coming back, I'm gonna comp you for that. Because I was happy to get him back. You know what I mean? I was kind of sad he was gone. He was a good client. So basically, it's just going to be updating a few page templates to look like his new design. He's done. But sometimes that happens, right? So from a monitoring and maintenance standpoint, speed and all that I think a key thing is before you go to rebuild, you want to really look at the current build and how it works. Because it might work really well and just need a few maintenance things to be done versus doing a complete rebuild, which costs a lot more money. I think a lot of people kind of don't realize, they think getting a new site means I got to start all the way over. And that's not the case in a lot of ways. I mean, if someone did a good job, there's no reason a developer should tell you have to start over again. So let's go for some quick wins and some pro tips. And I think, Carlos, I know you have a topic you want to talk about when it comes to, I think, typography, or other words, fonts.
You know what? You're talking about Google Fonts, right?
Yeah, loading basically web fonts. I mean, that's kind of always been a new thing.
I don't know, but I know that from working in web design for years, I think Google Fonts has been the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you remember when people had to load actual fonts? They want to load a true type font. And I'm like, really?
Or you had to license fonts based on views.
I was always wondering who makes the Google fonts. Was it Google just like hired a bunch of people saying, let's replicate every font we can that's slightly different, but looks the same?
I don't know like who actually made the fonts, but think about it from a user experience standpoint, where you now get a browser with all these supported fonts. So
yeah,
your site's always going to look the same, because that was a lot of problems too back in the day, right? Sometimes font files wouldn't load or weren't compatible, or the person didn't have the font actually loaded in their system.
And I think
completely different. Or people would just want to do images, and you would have to tell people like, no, you can't just do images because search engines can't read images like that.
Yeah, that's always been a hard one. The biggest hard one for me though is people just don't understand. No one looks at desktop anymore. I mean, certain business do, like our business as what we do for a living, we would look at other desktop websites more.
B2B is primarily desktop too, but
consumers don't care.
I will tell you, like, I like browsing on my phone, but when I'm ready to buy things, unless it's urgency, I like to use my desktop, because it's like clothing, for example, or apparel. You lose so much on your phone. You already lose a lot because you're not physically there with the product, looking at it and holding it, right?
I still love that site you told me about, Noir, whatever it's called.
The Christian Dior site. Yeah, they did
Dior. That's such a good site.
Amazing site. But listen, go buy a t-shirt on there. It's only like $1,000 for a t-shirt. Right up your alley.
Yeah, I don't think I've spent $1,000 on any piece of clothes.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. So we're gonna summarize this. I'm gonna just give a few like quick wins on how to speed up your website. If you're not on a cloud hoster like Pressable or Kinsta, get yourself a cloud hoster. It's very easy to migrate a website these days. Most hosting companies will do it for you even. Just make sure it gets handled right. Make
Yeah.
sure you're talking to a pro. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole about website migration. Anyway, that's my first quick win. Second win is get yourself an optimization plugin. One specifically that does JSS, CSS optimization, image compression. I think WP Rocket does a great job. To me, those are the big two wins for making your site. Yeah, I know WP Rocket, they also sell their own CDN, which is, who knows, it's probably just
I moved all of my domains, which was like, I don't know, in the hundreds, from Cloudflare to GoDaddy, and I saved something like $800 a year because Cloudflare is just
you're talking
cheaper.
domain registration. I thought you meant Cloudflare.
Oh no, both. So
Okay.
I used to use Cloudflare to manage my domain versus GoDaddy. I'm like, why am I doing this? I just need to just move to Cloudflare. I mean, because I'm literally not using GoDaddy anymore from a DNS perspective. So I recommend, yeah, it definitely has a good bot protection and a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Cloudflare actually does domain registrations. They don't make profit on it, they claim. They sell at a cost.
They really?
Yeah.
Oh, and he looks like he makes a lot of money, that guy. The guy,
Which guy? The guy that runs Cloudflare?
oh no, never mind. I was going to say something. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to keep it all inside.
All right, Judd. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. I'll
Yeah.
see you on the next one.
All right, buddy.